Your week was probably better than President Obama's. I'm Charlie Sykes. Sunday Insight starts right now. Good morning and welcome to Sunday Insight. In the week that was, conflicting reports on jobs. One report says that Wisconsin added 62,000 jobs in the last 2 years. Another says the state lost 24,000 jobs last month. You figure it out. A massive wildfire in northern Wisconsin. Tough road trips for the Milwaukee Brewers dropped them into the cellar of the National League Central Division. Angelina Jolie says she got a double mastectomy. Governor Walker calls for a tuition freeze and a sharp cut in the budget increases for the UW system in the wake of the discovery of a massive slush fund. Mayor Tom Barrett pledges to move ahead with a downtown trolley despite setbacks in the legislature. And the legislature takes another step towards cutting the Milwaukee County Board down to size. But we start with this, probably the worst week of the Obama presidency as the political world focuses on three scandals. The ongoing controversy over Benghazi, reports that the IRS had targeted conservative groups for harassment, and the revelation that the government had seized months' worth of reporters' phone records from the Associated Press. Any one of those stories would have made for a tough week, but all three created a perfect storm. Local reaction was strong. Local journalists condemned the seizure of the AP records, and Governor Scott Walker co-signed a letter that called the IRS assault on Tea Party groups Big Brother come to life and a witch hunt to prevent Americans from exercising their First Amendment rights. And on Thursday, a local angle. In a story first broken by rightwisconsin.com, the IRS may have gotten involved in the recall effort against Governor Walker. Documents suggest the IRS targeted groups behind the so-called I Verify the Recall effort, which compiled a database of recall signatures. In February 2012, the IRS asked a Texas-based Tea Party group, provide details regarding your relationship with Verify the Recall, indicate the activities of Verify the Recall. Two of the groups involved in the Verify the Recall effort also experienced delays in getting their tax-exempt status approved. Joining me on our panel this morning, political strategist Linda Bruin, former State Representative Michelle Litchens, Media Tracker's Brian Sickmet. So let's start with you, Michelle. Of all of these scandals, which one poses the biggest threat to the Obama administration?
They are all huge scandals. Technically, the extortion through Secretary Sebelius right now.
But you haven't even mentioned that one.
I mean, just think about really the idea that our government can say, give us money or we're not going to let you allow to continue your business. That's huge. Benghazi, we allowed people to die and we covered it up. That really should haunt this administration. I think the one thing we really need to remember is that Americans have a very short memory, and 2014 is a long time off. So I don't know how all of these stories are going to play out over the next 18 months politically.
Okay, Linda Bruin.
Well, I actually disagree with Michelle. I think the Achilles heel of the Obama administration could be the IRS scandal, because I don't care whether you're conservative or liberal, all Americans distrust the IRS, are afraid of the IRS, and for an administration that's asking the public to not only trust government, but trust government so much that they want support for Obamacare, to have another major part of government so much break the faith with the public is really, I think, is a horrific scandal.
Brian Sickmet.
The era of the Teflon presidency for Barack Obama is over. It died this past week, and it needed to come to an end because all the way into his second term, thanks to a compliant and complacent mainstream media, Barack Obama was able to skate through unscathed by anything until now. And I think each one of these scandals in their own right plays a major role. I mean, you have Benghazi, which I think undermines the president's foreign policy credibility. I mean, yes, he got bin Laden, but you have Benghazi came up right after that, proving he could not keep Americans safe. You've got the IRS, which undermines the Obamacare implementation. All of these scandals coming out and coming together at this time, I think, really pose a serious threat for the White House.
And the AP story is probably the one that resonates the least with the average person, but may have the longest term implications because it has changed the relationship of the media with President Obama, because they've been willing to look the other direction. But I agree with Lynn on this one. You have a president whose entire legacy turns on getting people to trust government. It was a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, that the president spoke at Ohio State University and said, you know, these voices warning you of government tyranny, reject them, trust government. Well, then you've had this playing out. In fact, you could argue that President Obama right now is making a better case for small government, why we should be skeptical of government power, than any Republican has done in years. And the reason why this IRS story is going to resonate is, as you point out, if you think the IRS is scary now, wait until it is enforcing, all the health care reforms, because what the government has done with Obamacare is to weaponize the IRS.
Right, and I think taxpayers, well, actually broader than that, the general public isn't really aware of that yet. And as this scandal unfolds and the connections are more discussed openly and publicly, they will. The other ones, frankly, some of those, even though Benghazi dealt with people dying, I think that would have eventually died on its own given the administration's release of all those documents. And Sebelius, I think, is more of a personal issue. This one, I think, could actually sink Obama's
I think that the Sebelius thing, well, I think that's a major issue, because what you have is somebody who is, asking companies to pony up money, and this is somebody who regulates those businesses.
Oh, it's a problem.
But the key policy and political issue of the next year and a half, and you're right, Michelle, 2014 is a long time off, but that election is going to turn on the implementation of Obamacare. Already evidence that it is going to be a train wreck. But when people realize it is a train wreck driven by the IRS.
Right. But I actually do think that the biggest story that is going to have the longest lasting effect really is the IRS, because, like Lynn said, that is an entity that we all have to deal with. It's something we can all relate to. The other stories aren't very tangible to the average person on a daily basis.
And the other part of that story that I think people are going to find out relatively soon is that I don't think it's going to be just the IRS. I think that this administration set out to target its political opponents. And you're going to see the EPA, you're going to see OSHA, you're going to see other stories like that. I think there's a lot to go with that story, and there's a lot of aspects to it. And remember, Richard Nixon, one of the articles of impeachment was his misuse of the IRS to audit political opponents. Okay, what has your glass half full and what has your glass half empty? Let's go around the table. We'll start with you, Lynn.
Well, all of us women, our glasses are half full this week because the genetic test that Angelina Jolie took to identify her risk for breast cancer, that's widely available. But our glasses are half empty because that $4,000 test is not covered by almost any insurance in the country.
Michelle.
My glass is half full because the IRS has finally admitted that they were discriminating against conservative organizations. But my glass is half empty because we have these organizations crying to the press, crying to the media, crying to their representatives, saying we are being discriminated against, do something. And it took a report that was going to be released by the Inspector General to actually make the IRS admit it.
Brian Sigma.
Well, my glass is half full this week because nearly 30 Republican lawmakers signed a letter saying they wanted to see the Department of Natural Resources Stewardship Fund reformed. The Stewardship Fund uses money we don't have as a state to buy land we don't really need as a state. But unfortunately, my glass is half empty because the Joint Finance Committee passed up a tremendous opportunity to reform and instead punted the ball down a little ways and said they're not really going to deal with serious reform right now.
Well, my glass is half full because Governor Walker is calling for a tuition freeze for UW students. It's half empty because those students already had their tuition jacked up and the money went into the massive UW slush fund. Next on Sunday Insight, how much should fast food workers get paid? And as we go to break, Wisconsin Congresswoman Gwen Moore gets the Stephen Colbert treatment.
When did you first realize you were black?
When I was a little girl, there was a little girl in my neighborhood, and she asked her mom, was I chocolate?
Congresswoman, are you chocolate? Does that make me vanilla?
I don't know.
Could I be chocolate?
It's very possible that you could have some chocolate in you. We're all mixed up with a lot of stuff.
One thing I know is I'm not soft soul.
There's no plain vanilla. There's a little mint in there sometimes.
But is that gay? What is that? What is mint?
I don't know. It's just minty, kind of Irish.
No, Irish people are automatically gay, is what you just said.
No, I didn't say that.
You said minty. That's kind of a gay flavor.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that guy's got more than a hint of mint?
I've never heard that, and I love mint.
Well.
You never know, huh?
You never know. Maybe you're a little minty. Let's
So, would you like fries with that, or how about just a big raise? A fast food strike comes to Milwaukee with activists demanding a $15 an hour minimum wage and unionization of fast food workers. Supporters rallied last week, but it's not clear how much support the idea really has. $15 an hour is more than double the current federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. And if you do the math, that comes to about $31,000 a year. Is it a good idea, Linda Bruin?
No.
No.
I know I'm supposed to be the liberal of the group today, but I think the public, and it makes good sense to incrementally increase the minimum wage. But to double it is ridiculous, and it would really put that industry into a tailspin. And it's not an industry that can survive with that type of wages, and that's just the bottom line.
Okay, now I had a caller last week to my show, one of your fellow liberals, who said, look, these fast food places are run by millionaires and billionaires, and they can afford all of that. They can afford a little bit extra. Why should anybody be working for poverty wages?
Well, you know, the problem with that is maybe the top level management of the whole enterprise are, but a lot of these are franchise locations, Subway, Burger King, McDonald's, that people, I have a friend whose daughter worked her way up through management, and she's not a multimillionaire, and that would totally destroy her location.
Okay, why not boost the situation of the working poor?
Working poor have an opportunity to boost their own situation. I think this is an example of two things. Number one, the entitlement mentality that seems to be taking over our country right now, which is the only reason why something like this can even exist. But number two, because we've completely taken out basic economics classes in school. So I even heard that caller that called your show that said, those people buy that business for $1 million. You have to understand that if someone purchases something for $1 million, it doesn't mean they have $1 million sitting in the back of their desk, in the back of the office. You know, you have to understand how that business works, and I think people do not understand that when you pay $6 for a hamburger, that is not $6 going right into the owner's pocket of the business.
This is what I don't understand. That the the AFL-CIO and other big labor organizations have endorsed this particular movement, which most people that I've talked to go, okay, $15 an hour, that's just crazy. It separates them from the average person. So why is the AFL-CIO associating itself with something that just sounds off the hook?
I think they're just trying to get some political points out of this or something, or they're just not thinking beyond stage one. I mean, Thomas Sowell's one of my favorite economists, and as Michelle mentioned, people need to think beyond this. Okay, if we raise the minimum wage here, that means they can hire less people. There are millions of young Americans, high school students that are getting out for summer here pretty soon. Their first job is starting off in a fast food restaurant. There's nothing wrong with that.
But you know what? You have this combination of fiscal illiteracy and class warfare. I think why screw around with this? Why not go to a $100 minimum wage, have $60 Big Macs, if people don't like it, whatever.
And
right? And everybody should get a unicorn from the Gumdrop Palace. You may not want to hear it, but we're going to tell you anyway. Let's dish out some unsolicited advice. Lynn, you are first.
Well, this is to the Obama administration. Please do not underestimate the public's fury over the IRS scandal. And if you treat this scandal like you've treated some of the others, you could be in real trouble.
Michelle.
This is to the legislators. They still have an opportunity to fix stewardship. Our state, or all governments, federal, state, county governments included, own 17% of the state. We do not need to borrow any more money to buy land.
Brian Sickman.
Well, I have some unsolicited advice for State Senator Dale Schultz and other senators. Stand by Governor Walker as he's proposed to reject the federal Medicaid expansion from Obamacare. The alleged benefits of Medicaid expansion are a complete myth. We don't need to get the state hooked on more unfunded federal mandates. Governor Walker's making the right decision. It's time for the state Senate to back that decision.
Well, my unsolicited advice, hey, if you think the IRS is scary right now, wait until it is enforcing Obamacare. Just saying. Coming up on Sunday Insight. Is one too many? We'll talk about the proposal to lower the number of drinks you can have and still legally drive. Could one drink be too many to get behind the wheel? The National Transportation Safety Board says the blood alcohol level should be dropped from 0.08 to 0.05 for drunk driving. Critics say the move is a step toward a return of prohibition. Supporters say it would help clamp down on the epidemic of drunk driving. What do you think?
I think the problem is we shouldn't have a federal mandate for this. We shouldn't have the feds coming in telling states what they should be doing about this. Now, the blood alcohol level, it depends a lot if you're impaired on the factors that go into it. I mean, how many drinks you had, or your body mass, and all that. I'm sure as Lynn can attest to about different medical factors. But we shouldn't have the feds coming in telling states what to do. And we should crack down on the people that are driving.
Leaving that aside, then why shouldn't the state? Should the state on its own consider changing that?
I think they could do that, and it'd be better, I would argue.
It would be?
Just because of simply a separation of powers, issue.
But let's talk about the blood alcohol level.
That, I think, is something, there's just too many factors that go into it that vary for each person. We need to not focus on that point.
I don't think it has to be an all or nothing. I think there's other alternatives to this. I do like the idea, which actually Sheriff Clark has been talking about, which is changing a first offense from a ticket to a misdemeanor. I also think that there's a difference in intent of someone who doubles the legal limit versus someone who's just over that 0.08. And right now, there's not much difference in the law between someone who's slightly over and someone who's massively illegal. And I'd like to see some stiff penalties for people who are really smashed.
Okay.
I think first when I heard the NTSB suggest this, and they said we have to do this because over 100 other countries in the world have done this. I think that's the first reason we shouldn't do this, actually. But this is the nanny state. I think that if people are going to break the law, if people are going to drive while they're intoxicated, they're going to drive while intoxicated, whether it's 0.08 or whether it's 0.05. So no, I don't think we should do it.
I guess I would take a different point on this. Is why are we going after the least dangerous drivers? The people out. This is another one of these examples where instead of going after the real problem, we cast the net that is to affect the vast majority of people who would go out to a restaurant or to a bar and have 1 or 2 drinks, who are suddenly now faced with the possibility of being arrested for this, as opposed to going after the people who are really blowing the 0.1s, blowing the 0.15s, multiple drunk drivers. Lock those people up, because the reality is that if you go down to a 0.05, it really is at that point where if you go out to a restaurant, you get 1 drink, maybe, depending on your body size, that everybody is at risk. So, I mean, there is that tendency, instead of going after the criminals here, to go after the average American. I mean, this would be a tremendous tremendous inconvenience to both the restaurant industry, but also to anybody that just casually drinks that is, frankly, not going to be impaired. I mean, is there a problem?
And the real problem is that our judges don't sentence people, right? Our prosecutors aren't saying you need to send the person who's the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th offense to jail, and that's where the problem is, and that's what we have to fix.
Some of the criminal some of the statutes aren't tough enough. For a lot of times, by the time it hits a judge, the judge has inadequate statutes, and the bottom line is it's easier for the NTSB to decide as a small body that they want to do this. It's like low-hanging fruit, and it's a small group, versus a legislature to agree to change some of the laws and the penalties. But if you do it for this, then why aren't we saying that you can't drive until you're 21? I mean, there's so many other reasons for deaths on our highway. It's not just drunk driving, and so it starts to be a bit of a slippery slope.
Well, and going back to your point about the federal government, I think that one of the things that's going to come out of all the stuff that we've been talking about is more skepticism about the wisdom of the federal government to come out with one-size-fits-all rules for the entire country. And there is this whole thing where now the federal government won't dictate to us that we have to change the blood alcohol level. It would just simply bribe us. And we know that in fact is effective. So is what they said this week the same thing as what you heard? Let's go around the table again. Linda Bruin.
Well, President Obama said the Pentagon officials had told him that they were angry and ashamed of the huge level of sexual assaults in the military. But given that the Pentagon officials have known about this for 10 years and done absolutely nothing, what I heard were the empty words of Pentagon officials who got caught.
Michelle Litchens.
Well, what we heard this week was the president say that the Benghazi embassy was attacked because of budget cuts. But I seem to remember hearing previously that the embassy was attacked because of a video on YouTube. I think they have their talking points confused.
Brian Sickman.
Well, this past week, Assembly Democrats actually attacked a bipartisan resolution honoring the life and legacy of Margaret Thatcher. Lady Thatcher was the first female prime minister of the United Kingdom and a staunch U.S. ally. When I heard the Democrats attack Lady Thatcher, I heard some hints of a war on women, maybe a war on conservative women.
Well, what they said was we are outraged and we have no patience at all for this scandal in the IRS. What I heard was, ooh, we got caught. Next on Sunday Inside, our panel picks the winners and losers of the week. But first, here's your morning news update. It's time for our panel to pick the winners and losers of the week. Michelle Litchens, you're first.
Well, my loser is Eric Holder. How many times can you say, I don't know, when hearing? Either you are inept or trying to deceive Americans. Either excuse is unacceptable from our nation's top cop. And after reading about a Marine who went against Marine regulations in his code of conduct because he held an umbrella over the president, it reminded me that we have thousands of men and women in uniform taking orders to keep us safe all over the world. So thank you, and you are all winners.
Linda Bruin.
Last week, as a black bear attacked her husband, my winner, Marie Ninneman from Marinette, grabbed a shotgun but didn't know how to load it, so she hit the bear over the head with it until her husband was freed. My losers are the 2 Minnesota women sentenced to federal prison last week for going door-to-door soliciting funds for charity, but actually giving the money to Somali terrorists.
Brian Sickman.
Well, my loser this week is the Obama administration. From misrepresenting facts to cracking down on a free press to strong-arming Americans for their political views, the administration shifted blame, made meaningless gestures, and demonstrated a grotesque propensity to politicize everything, even the deaths of Americans. Well, my winner this week is the media. Yes, the media, finally embarrassed by conservatives, whistleblowers, and alternative media into covering the unbelievable actions of this White House. At least some reporters are starting to do their job.
Well, the obvious loser this week is the Obama administration, which had a lousy week. But the real losers, the First Amendment, the rule of law, and the fundamental American notion that the people should not fear the government. Winner, small government conservatives, because President Obama is making the case for smaller government better than any Republican in years. Thanks for joining us. I'm joining for my radio show Monday morning on News Radio 620 WTMJ from 8:30 until noon. Have a great week.